Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, Tool Talkers.
Happy Tuesday. It is already Tuesday.
It is already Tuesday.
That's exciting.
It's crazy.
So what you think? What
You
you think's
know,
new with everybody out there?
I know that WFR is almost all completely booked.
Yeah.
I think they got two more spots open. I think they opened up more spots uh due to popular demand.
Yeah, it is definitely popular. Kind of cool to see it growing every year
Yeah.
with no fizzle in sight.
And I was just thinking like, God, how cool would it have been if my concert was like in November, the same time as SEMA, because then I could have done both. That would have been cool. But you know how like every time I hear people's thoughts after coming back on SEMA and they're like, dude, I walked a lot. And now I see why.
Yeah.
But I heard like the Las Vegas Convention Center itself is like miles. So I mean, because you got three floors or three areas or whatever. Because it's not just window tint, detail, PPF. It's like every little industry that's involved with automotive,
Yeah.
which is
It's
crazy.
kind of a big deal.
So you got your like off-road people, you got your radio people, you got your tires people. Like they all have a little piece of it. It's just that's crazy. I
It's a
don't even
lot.
know I don't even know if I would have fun at a large event like that because I'm an indecisive person, and, like, if I go there as a tinter, yeah, there's tint stuff, but, like, I see tint stuff every day, like, I feel like this would be my opportunity to check out something different, you know?
Yeah, I could see you getting sucked in a whole lot of different directions. And then on the way home being like, man, I wished I would have, so many things. Oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
realize that so and so was there. Oh man.
I mean, it was bad enough with the IWFA and the tint off having glass stuff that had nothing to do with window tinting. I mean, they had, like, windshield replacement and rock chip repair, and, like, there's, like, a whole nother half of that convention.
Well, yeah, that's how that is every year. We share it with the automotive glass people.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's crazy. I like learning new things, and I like discovering new industries I've never even, like, knew existed. Like, wow, this was a thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So four
Oh, what's
years
up,
ago,
Sean?
4 years ago, something big happened.
Yeah, fucking COVID.
Well, something probably even bigger than that. At least some would think so.
COVID vaccinations. You know, I don't know. So there was a guy that shared the same sobriety date as me, and he made a good point. And it was like something along the lines of it's just another day, it's just a number. You know, me being 4 years sober doesn't make me more sober than I was.
No, see, I think what we lose sight of as we get time under our belt, we start realizing that it's just another day. But go back that first, what, 2, 3 years that I knew you? 4 years? I don't know. 30 days was a big deal. 90 days was huge. Why? Because it was so unobtainable. It was like unfrickin' real how you could go that long without it. See, the difference between then and the last 4 years is something finally clicked and it's working for you. You're not working for it. You know, that's one thing I really struggle with people. Has it been 5 years already, Sean? Holy shit. That's crazy. But yeah, I see so many people talking about how, you know, sobriety is a battle one day at a time. And the truth is it's not. It is when that something doesn't click. When you're the one staying sober, it's a battle every freaking day. And any given day, you just make a wrong turn, a wrong decision, a wrong thought, and
Yeah.
you're right back starting all over again, firing it up one more time.
One day at a time really does feel like playing with God's grace to live just long enough to one day where it might click and you'd be alive for it.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're battling sobriety one day at a time, basically that's what you're saying is I don't trust God to do it. I have to do it. And I guess without getting too godly, because I'm not, but I do know that, I mean, what was it, 15 years ago for me? And before that, 5 days was unfucking real. The last time before I got sober for good, I made it 3.5 weeks. And I was every day I was like doing it, and then one day I forgot to do it. And I got stupid drunk, ended up in jail. And then I realized that I'm not going to be able to do it because no matter how hard I try, there is going to come a day when I do it again. And something clicked for me then. And I did what I was told, and I'll be damned. It stopped being a thing, and I don't know. It's,
Apparently I got shouted out on a recovery podcast and I just learned about it.
oh
So
no.
I gotta go watch it now. It's an
What
hour
about your anonymity?
and it's 130 days now. Well, it's a different fellowship. So I mean I guess there's some sort of anonymity. But
Yeah, I don't know. I never when I was chairing open talks, I decided that these people deserve to be recorded and preserved. Sometimes it's good, especially, you get a couple years under your belt and slip right into a relapse, it might do you some good to hear your own open talk from 2 years ago.
and I have a recorded one too. And I remember I listened to it a year after it and it was already cringy.
I've got a few recordings of me, and
What was that saying? They're like, there's three versions of it. There's like what you planned on saying, what you actually said, and what you wish you could have said, or
yeah,
something like that. Well, there's really four because there's the after you haven't listened to it a while. Man.
yeah. I was taught early on that, and that was back when I was still believing everything anybody told me. So when they told me that, they're like, just empty your mind and go and let God do the talking.
And it like
You
turned into
know,
it turned into a comedy show without even trying it. Like I was just trying to be real, but everyone just kept laughing the whole time. And I'm like, this is not really what I was going for, but
so when you share your aha moments, a lot of times it's so relatable amongst so many people in the room that it's not funny because it's funny. It's funny because, yeah, me too. Oh my God. You know, one of my favorite things that made people laugh was when I was really working on trying to let God run the show, and that whole trust thing, and it was working out really well. Well, it turns out it was working out really well while everything around me was working with it. But the one time that I guess Mary was having a bad day, and I cooked dinner and I made some kind of, I don't know, casserole type thing with red sauce, and it was good. And Brittany, she was just a relatively new teenager, so she was out doing Brittany things, but it was dinner time, so we ate. And one thing that my sponsor taught me was, if the dishes not being done bothered me, then how come I didn't do the fucking dishes? So I was doing the dishes every night, and I just thought, oh my God, this is so amazing. And that particular day, Mary wasn't having a good day. I don't know what it was, but dinner got done and I cleaned up like normal, and I put the casserole dish back in the oven because I knew the oven was warm, and I got the dishes all cleaned up, and Mary walked in and instantly she was like, "What the fuck? Brittany hasn't ate anything yet." I'm like, I know. It's in the oven. And she opens up the oven to look and sees that it's in there with the spoon. It's a plastic spoon. To me, the oven wasn't that hot, but she grabbed that and she says, "You're going to melt the fucking spoon." And she throws it onto the stove, and red sauce just went everywhere. And I had just wiped everything down. Everything's clean. A whole thing, a strainer full of clean dishes sitting there and everything, all with red sauce. And I was like, God, I got this. And I just lit her up. And oh my God, that would light the room up. Everyone would be like, "Oh yeah." But I didn't find that funny. That was, God, I would say that was close to one of the worst nights of our relationship. I mean, that blew up into shit that you don't want to live through. And they thought it was funny.
My funny point was the day I decided to become a raver because I watched the movie Party Monsters with Macaulay Culkin. And then also the one where I faked a marriage to get marriage gifts to pawn, wedding
Dude,
gifts
I
to
still
pawn.
think that's genius as shit.
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
don't
good.
know. I hate to even be that guy, but I mean, I'm just a little bit low key proud of you for that one.
It's just crazy, like how creative like you can be in your darkest days.
What's up,
Um,
Cisco? What's up,
you know,
Shimon?
I just thought of something that hasn't been done before that could probably have some appreciation in our industry. You know, you got these like yellow tables and these yellow balloon folks that basically follows the 12 steps, but it's not like for any particular vice. It's just whatever your vice is, whatever vice demons you're dealing with, but you follow a 12-step program. There is a table for you at a large event. And it's like, how cool would it be if there was like a yellow table at all these large window tinting events? Like, what if we got like a nonprofit together? Nothing huge like Tenders for a Cause or anything crazy, but what if we had like a 12-step program for tinners, rent out a booth at WFR, at SEMA, everywhere, and then we have like a hangout spot. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's
I
just
think that's actually crossed my mind, and my my gut thought on it is that a lot of people wouldn't unless a lot of people was.
It's like, what if there's like someone that was on probation or someone that hasn't really had it click and they're too scared to go because, like they're on that, hang around a barbershop long enough, get a haircut. Well, what if they knew that there was a place where there's gonna be like people for sure that's not gonna be there just to drink and smoke weed and get
Yeah,
trash.
absolutely. But like I said, my initial thought is they wouldn't go unless there were people going. Almost like if they could blend in, that'd be awesome. But if there's one guy sitting at the table, they don't want to be the second. If everybody knows what that table's all about or that area is all about, like, oh well, so if you could get a group of committed people to gather, then I think that would be huge.
Mhm. And maybe not like a marathon meeting like every hour on the hour, but maybe like one every 3 hours and just have some volunteers. Like, yeah, I'll chair the one at 3 o'clock, and yeah, I'll chair the one at 6. You know,
Right.
and it'd be a good. I don't know. I think that'd be cool.
I don't know if me chairing a meeting at a oh man, people would be talking about me
No,
afterward.
and
They'd
then
be like,
we can come out with Tinder shirts that say one window at a time.
well, there's a Facebook group called Window Tinners Anonymous,
Oh yeah.
although it's not very active. They don't really do anything in there. But that was an idea that went nowhere. And it was a hopeful thought, but just like I mean, you've been in Mickey Paw enough to know that anything that's going to gain traction and do, there's a lot behind the scenes to make it work.
It is.
Things don't just work when nobody does anything.
No, it doesn't. And like, I mean, you got chair positions, and that's kind of like how, in my way, I appreciate what all these people do to get WFR going, like Ryan Wilcox, Cash, Tallman, like, because I mean, I've been through that and it was tough, but there would be like 20 of us working together and it was still tough,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
um I haven't even been a part of the hotel bidding part. I've like toured hotel convention centers just to like have something to do, but I was never behind the closed door talking or emails back and forth. And I know that you got like food and beverage minimums, and then like do you want to hire your own audio video guy, or do you like want to use someone in house, or do you want to use the hotel provided one, which is like even more expensive? There's just so much to go, and then like fighting for dates, like you all voted on this weekend to do it, but then turns out that there's like uh, a Pistons game and the Lakers are going to be in town, but because the Lakers are going to be in town, like all the hotels are not going to let you book, and it's just there's just so much.
Yeah. Well, and that's why your idea about going, to like already events is probably a great start. The question is, would it fly? And is is it something that you could get enough volunteerism to actually make it work if it was gonna?
And then like booths aren't cheap either, and like I feel like it would be wrong to accept a free booth. Same reason, AA's traditions, you can't just get a
Yeah,
free room. You got to pay
that
something for it.
yeah, that breaks our seventh tradition.
Yeah, and it's because you don't want to give them any opportunity to put their branding on what you have going, because if something ever happens to them or whatever, like, there can't be like an official association. Like, you just so happen to be there, like, just because an AA meeting is held at a particular church doesn't mean that church has anything to do with running that particular meeting. You know,
What if we started with changing from Tool Talk Tuesday to like, well, shit, I would need a name. Sober Tinner Talk. No, that's too much.
spiritual tint.
Spiritual Tints. I don't like it. I
Spiritual-
never liked anything. You know, one of the biggest pullbacks for people in and around AA or NA or any of the other fellowships is the God idea. And even the word spirituality really turns a lot of people off. And the reality is, I was the guy that went in there with no desire to form any kind of a relationship with God or do any of that. And that's why you don't hear me pushing the idea too much to people, because sometimes that's what's holding you back. And it took the realization that I wasn't the one doing it. It took the realization that there is something bigger than me handling it for me. And, and it took, as we talked about, what was it yesterday, about Aaron and, that's God thing. About that little voice inside, and just the little hints that allowed me to get right with it.
Chama says, "No way, just keep the name."
There is enough people doing tint talk shows, and I don't have anything specific to bring to the table. I mean, if you want to ask me how to make $1 million in a year, I can tell you I've done it. If you want to ask me how to handle any problem that you might face in the tent industry, I can tell you I've done it. If you want to ask me about most tools, I could probably tell you about them. But these are not things that just pop into my head. I am not that kind of an artistic mind that, can come every week with a new topic.
I think talking about real life stuff still is pertainable to window tinting, though, because like I feel like your window tint game is a direct reflection of how your life outside of tinting is. Because outside the shop, whatever's going on in your life, when you clock back in that next time you go to the shop, it's following you. And like, if you start off having a good day, your chances of having a good day tinting is probably higher than if you came to work in a shit mood. And then,
Absolutely. And we actually have somebody in our circle that proves that on a regular, somebody who watches the schedule like mad. And, he comes in knowing what to expect in the morning, but then the phone rings and the schedule changes even just a little bit. And if it happens early in the day, he has a shit day the entire day. But if everything stays exactly the way that he expected it to, he has a pretty good day. And it's that's real in people expectations. But Sean says he'd like to make $1 million in a year. Well, Sean, I actually misspoke then. I don't know how to make $1 million because that sounds like net. And I've never netted $1 million. I've done $1 million. And in automotive, it just in case there's any flat glass guys watching that's like, yeah, well, $1 million ain't shit. No, not in flat glass. You could probably do that. But I was never drawn to flat glass. I was drawn to the challenges of automotive. I came up in the 80s and 90s tinting cars, and it was a challenge. It was an art. It was not like the cookie cutter stuff we have going on now. don't get me wrong, the Tesla brought brought the game back a little bit here and there with their big ass windows, but Sean's like, I'd take $1 million paycheck before taxes. So here's the thing, Sean, about making $1 million or doing $1 million in a year. You don't do that by yourself. That is not a me thing. You know, that was a collective 5 tinners and an office person handling all the business. And collectively we did it. We did about 6,000 cars that year, and it was amazing. And that was the year that I pushed and became a distributor because I could. And it was, you know, that was a life-changing thing, but it's doable. And oddly enough, what made that possible is I ran my business from what I learned in AA, as far as the steps and the traditions, the way of life that it teaches you. It says in the 12 step that we practice those principles in all of our affairs. And I took that seriously. And in business, I practice those principles 100% with all my customers and all my accounts. And, you know, I was loved and appreciated and just kept growing to the point that I just kept having to find other tinners. The only reason that we scaled back is because the money wasn't worth the hassle. You tinners are a bunch of prima donna okay, I shouldn't say you tinners. That's kind of rude. You know, that's like profiling, and I shouldn't do that. But I did find that tinners in general are really hard to please. It doesn't matter if you're making $100,000 a year. If, you know, my office is making 10% on you, that's way too fucking much, and you shouldn't be making all this money. And it's like, but those people need paychecks too. So, but I would still love to have a personal income of $1 million a year. I think that would be super cool. The problem with having a personal income of $1 million a year would probably be the taxes. Although I think with a personal income of $1 million a year, we could afford to be one of those people that figured out how to avoid the taxes. Maybe. I mean, maybe it's still not enough, and maybe you just pay a ton of taxes wishing you just made a little bit more. I don't know. One thing that I learned over the years, though, is it doesn't matter how much you have, you won't be happy.
I think the trick is obtaining leverageable assets. So that way you can take loans using your assets as leverage, and then you live off the loans because you don't get taxed on money you get from a loan. And then you live off the loan. And then when you make the money back, you pay the loans as you pull from them. And then that way it's just like a tax loophole thing.
Maybe that I still struggle to understand that, because I mean, I get my taxes done and I get a lot of loans and I pay the loans, but I have to pay taxes on the money that I made to pay the loans because I didn't pay taxes on the loan. And don't forget, I still have to pay taxes on the income that I give myself as a paycheck. And on top of that, I found out the hard way that if I got too much inventory on the shelves at the end of the year, I have to pay taxes on that too. They call that income. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about taxes no more. Now you made me sad. We're supposed to be talking about happy stuff like 4 years of sobriety.
Ryan says, speaking of large Tesla windows, we had a potential customer say he got his Model Y sunroof front doors done for $85. I wished him good luck, and to feel free to reach out with any window film questions in the future.
That's all you can do. That brings up an actually good point, because that seems to be a sore spot in the industry amongst a lot of people, is these people doing tint jobs for cheap. the only way that people doing tint jobs for cheap is going to hurt you or an area is when other tinners start following it. And the reason I say that, I have experience with that also. I had a guy, a half a mile down the road from me open up a shop, and he was doing tint for just over half the cost of what we were doing tint for. And everyone was all like, "What are you going to do, man? I mean, he's doing sets of doors for $50." And we were like 109 at the time. He was doing complete cars for $150. And we were, I don't know, 229 or something like that. And he he didn't make it 9 months. But even if he would have made it, you realize that man could only afford or only have time to tint so many cars in a day, and he couldn't afford to pay another tinner to come in and tint with him. He was limited. He limited himself by the price he was doing. He could not outgrow me. I'm charging damn near double what he's charging, which means that I have to do half the cars to make the same money. So if we're both doing what we can, I'm making double of the money. Who can afford to hire a tinner? Me. I can. An example of why Trump doesn't pay that much in taxes is because he gets dividends instead of a paycheck. Dividends are taxed as capital gains instead of income. His top interest is 18% and takes deductions from there. Yeah, so that's the part where it gets fuzzy for me, Sean, because I don't know. If I can't afford to play with it a little bit, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. I almost need to experience it. So if somebody could just help me get some dividends, that would be cool. I could, after I understand it, I'd be happy to explain it to everybody. But right now it just puzzles me. And Tim and Ryan both said good luck to the customer. Tim says that he says good luck to every customer when he tells them that. One thing that we do need to be careful about that I learned through AA and carried on to my business is always show respect to your customer, even if they don't show respect to you. It goes a long, long ways. And, a lot of people, and I'm not saying you two, but a lot of people with the good luck thing, it comes off like good luck, and if you talk to a customer that way, when that customer has a bad situation with their $85 or whatever $100 tint job, they're not going to want to come to you because you already crawled under their skin. You pissed them off because what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of belittled them, like
Condescending.
condescending. That's it. So even though the reality is, better, that he's not going to go get a good tint job for $85 and be happy and last for a long time. That's just not going to happen. But if you treat a customer like more than they do with a smirk, you might as well have told them, get the fuck out. I don't want to talk to people like you. Because that's what the customer hears, if that makes sense. So that's something that I would just say, be real careful about how you wish the customer luck. And, and always, like Ryan said, be helpful along with it. One thing that I used to tell people is, oh yeah, I do a lot of, I tint a lot of cars that have already been tinted for a good deal. I'm not saying that this person is good or bad, but one thing that I've learned is always to try to help people. And the way I do that is, if you want to go try to save money and it doesn't work out, you're going to have a really bad time. And I hate to see that in a customer because I love my industry. So what I can do for you is, if you go and get a great deal and it doesn't work out for you and that person just can't make you happy, feel free to come by. I'll remove their film for free as long as you pay me for my job what I charge. And I couldn't tell you how many jobs I actually closed without them going to the better deal because of my willingness to help them if they really did have a bad time. And it was just the angle of approach. Really inside, I was telling them, I know better than that. You're not going to have a good time. And hold on a second, I got to take this.
Kamal says, just slap on the face with the white glove. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like dealing with all that. What about, do any of you guys do like referral programs? Is that helpful?
Was what helpful? Sorry. That was
Oh,
bad. I had to take it.
what about, do you know of people that do like referral programs?
So yeah, we used to call them spiffs, and we would spiff, but we had a lot of wholesale accounts. So we had other shops working for us because one of the great, and don't get me wrong, you're selling your tent job for cheap, but in the process, you're helping somebody else. Again, back to that, helping somebody else, but you're helping somebody else take care of their customer. So we had a lot of accounts where we would do wholesale work for them and we would represent them in their store. And because a lot of these stores have an owner off to the side somewhere and salespeople that really didn't make a ton of money selling, say it was a stereo shop. So they're selling speakers and stereos and they're there and they get their salary and it is what it is. And they don't care if they sell 10 or whatever. So we'd spiff them. And with a 3-tier system, we would give them $5 for a complete. We'd give them $10 for a complete in carbon and $20 for a complete in ceramic. And every level gained us more money. So it gave them incentive to talk to the customers about different tiers. It also gave them incentive to try to sell the tint jobs so that it could book our days. And because one thing we didn't do is our model was not to drive around all day long tinting for wholesale prices at 6 different stores in a day. We would give one store that entire day, book everything you can, and challenge me. Sometimes I'd go in 10, 11 cars in a day. And all I had to do is stay in the back and tint windows. And for that, I was charging them 75%. Now, if they're charging, well, let's say 200 even. When we had our best year, we were 219. That was in 2017. But at 219, well, let's say at 200 because it's nice round numbers, we'd bill them $150. And then from there, we would pay the office. The office would take their 10% because the office people had to make a paycheck too. And we would purchase our own film too. So don't think that that's all free profit money. We would also have to cover our own gas and whatnot, but we would also pay the spiffs. And now that $150 just got dwindled down, $20 for the office, whatever for gas. But that's why you want to tint in one store all day instead of going to 6 different stores in a day, because going to one store in a day is a lot like just driving to work, isn't it? So it's so much better. And then the spiff, whether it's, well, it'd be $5 on the thing. So you're doing, let's say you're doing a complete for $120. So yeah, I did a lot of $120 completes, but that was my money. Well, let's say 115, 110 after you factor in film cost. So, I'm doing a car an hour, sometimes more. It just depends on the car. You give me a day full of Impalas and Malibus and I'm doing 11 cars in a day, so I can do them for $120. It's cool. I don't mind. Sets of doors. Holy shit. I can do 3 sets of doors in an hour. And, so I was making good money. On top of that, they were making good money because the only hassle they had was to write the invoice. Now, don't get me wrong. Before anybody that actually knows better says anything, I know that they expect to make 40% on their money in a shop. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. But the thing is, these shops always have more space than they have. And if we take care of everything beyond the customer service up front, then that shop space is only a problem if they don't have it. And if they don't have it, then that's just not a good fit for us. But we had 16 accounts and they all sold really, maybe there's 17. I don't know. I'll have to go back and count. But they all sold their days worth. Some stores had 3 days in a week. Some stores had 2, and a lot of stores just had 1. And wait, what was I talking about? Did I go off on a tangent again?
Not really. You didn't go too far off. You're talking about,
Oh, incentives.
yeah, costs and spiffs.
Yeah. So spiffs are a great thing. Bonus. I've known a lot of people that would give gift cards. My problem is, and this is only because it's my problem. One thing I've learned as a salesperson in life is you can't sell anything you don't believe in or that you don't want or you don't think there's value in. I don't get value when somebody gives me a gift card. I don't find that appealing. And to give gift cards to people that sell tint, to make it have value, it's going to need to be substantial. But if you give them cash, every little bit's helpful. Now, keep in mind, this was, 2015, 2016, 2017, back then, $5, $10, $20, that was a little more. And keep in mind, they weren't selling just one tint job. A store that had 3 jobs, I was in that week or 3 days. I was in that week. I was giving that person, $150, $200. So it kind of is worth it to them when otherwise they have their salary, and for doing the same job that they do anyways, they could get an extra $100, $150.
Now,
Kind of a big deal.
what about the customers that are like, "Oh my god, you did such an amazing job. I'm bringing my whole family to you."
So at Tint Squad, we do a discount on the 5th car. So, and we can put all the customers under the same account. So, like the person that's doing the referrals gets the credit for all the jobs, and on the 5th job, we can give them a discount. We don't do any kind of a spiff or cash back to a customer, but we do it in the form of a 10% discount, and customers love that. Where are you getting these questions at? I'm not seeing these questions. Or are you
Oh,
thinking of them all?
yeah, they're my questions. I'm trying to be interactive here.
You got good questions, Alex.
But they're actually questions I came up with myself from my
See,
own.
these guys, I bet you Sean's got good questions. He's just afraid that I'll answer them better than he does. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know.
That was supposed to be comedy arrogance, Sean. Don't take it literally.
There's just been situations where like I'm just not in the position of like giving a discount, or like a customer was like really easy to work with. They never really asked for a discount, but they're in for their like 3rd card. I just feel like I probably should hook them up. I don't know.
Honestly, Mary is every single customer that brings the 5th car in gets a discount, and I'm a if they ask for it kind of guy. If they're not asking for anything, why am I getting? But that's something about how I was raised. If somebody offers you money, never turn it down if you need it, and if you offer somebody money, don't offer twice. But I don't know. Somewhere in that, I gained the idea if they don't ask for it, don't offer it.
And then there's been a lot of times where like I like offer the discount and they're like, hell yeah, but then they give me a tip and it's like the same price I would have gotten, if not more, without the discount.
You
So
know, I'm curious if anybody else has had that experience because I have had that experience. I feel like a discount can promote a tip. I mean, not more times than not, but I feel like I've been tipped on discounted jobs. We also used to, if you really want to give a customer, my favorite thing, it just didn't seem to prove to be real super. It didn't seem to really offset things that much, but we used to do an incentive for a free tint job. Every single customer was eligible and it was automatic. So we had a bag with 50 balls in it, and eventually we put some 10% and 20% balls, ping pong balls, and we just with Sharpie we wrote 1 through 50, and then on some other like 2 or 3 other balls would put 10% or 20%. And when we wrote the customer up for the job initially, they would pick a number between 1 and 50. And on their fill out sheet that we would do with them, we'd put that number, and that number would be on that sheet. When it came time to pay, this is when it gets good. And we would have them reach into the bag and pull out a ball. And if they pulled out their number, the job was free, period. No catch, just free. And if you go to Tint Squad's Facebook page and go through the pictures and go back, back to like 2015, 2016, you'll see a lot of pictures of customers with big ass smiles holding up their ball. And my problem was the odds didn't seem to match. It seemed like I was having way too many winners, but maybe I wasn't, but it seemed like I was. And just maybe that's just looking at the individual loss than the overall gain. I could have been victim of that. It's easy to do, you know, when a customer calls and you give them the price and they tell you, oh, that's way too much. The guy down the street charges only blah blah blah. You know, it's going to take you 10 or 12 customers that love your price before you forget about the one that didn't. That one that didn't is going to stick with you. And I think it might have been the same thing with that. We would, but we still paid the tinner. So if like say Matt was in the shop tinting and we gave away a free tint job, we didn't make Matt lose his money for the tint job. That was our promotion in our tint shop. So that happened to Ryan a lot. Had some customer that I knew about what they would tip and would knock that off the price.
So Sean says he hates the concept of spiffs because the excitement of pushing the product once the spiff ends. He says he's seen it happen too many times over the year. They even gave a car to an employee one time for the amount of radar detectors they sold during the program. The sales dropped significantly when they stopped getting spiffed.
You know what, Sean? I have to agree with you. That's huge. And it's also dependent on the mindset of the person, because the spiff seemed like $5. What's $5? And I couldn't tell you how many sales guys that I dealt with that attitude. What do you mean what's $5? Your partner there, I just gave him 150 for last week. But you want to focus on what's $5, and you ain't going to try to sell jobs because I ain't paying you enough because I'm making all this money, but yeah, we eventually just decided, things changed and we just got away from spiffing because it was just too much with 16 accounts and God knows how many, 25 or 30 salespeople that we were dealing with. And it was just a lot to manage. And we stopped doing it. And I think I'd have to agree with you. The enthusiasm dropped off immensely. So yeah. But when it was happening, it did seem like it was it was effective for the people that it was effective for. The people that could embrace the idea of the potential. But, some of those people too, if you weren't offering them, $50 to sell a tint job, they weren't interested. But the problem is you got to give their boss his own spiff, for using the shop. And we don't do any kind of spiff program at our shop. Everybody just makes good money. And our tinner gets commission because I don't know, that just seems to be standard. I wish we could do away with that too. I think that everybody just deserves to get a fair paycheck and everybody should put forth the same effort. But that's just not how our industry is. Oh, and as long as we're, on the concept of um given extra money, I mentioned before that you're not going to gross $1 million in a year by yourself. You won't grow by yourself either. Remember, you only got so much time in the day. Now, don't get me wrong, you can work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day if you wish, and that is your choice. It's going to last for as long as it does. And I've seen a lot of people do it for a lot of years. The problem is you've got no substance there. You guys realize that I couldn't tell you the last time I walked into my tint shop and it's still over there turning out however many cars a day it is. That's because I'm not there trying to get all the money. I'm just letting the machine run. And the first step, and I firmly believe this, and I've done it all like this 100% of the time, and it's worked, and I've seen it done 100% of the time, is if you're getting overwhelmed with the amount of work you've got and you need to hire somebody, the first person you need to hire is someone to answer the phone. So many people are like, well, I don't like how, I mean, I could hire somebody, but they're not going to sell the product like I do. If you hire somebody that has no idea anything about window tint, and I know this from experience, they're going to sell the product exactly like you want them to because they don't know any better. And it doesn't take them that long. And the cool part is if they're by your side while you're working, when they don't have the answer, you're right there for them to ask, and they learn quick. And to the point where you don't have to worry about what they're saying to customers because they have the answers. And the cool thing is, a person answering phones and bringing in customers, cashing out customers, delivering vehicles, going over warranties and specifics like that, will save you more time than you can imagine, to the extent where it should be able to double your production. We don't realize how much time we spend answering the phone, looking through our appointment book to try to tell them when we can get them in, getting their keys, going over shades, delivering the car, talking about the discoloration that they see and the water spots that they may or may not see, or whatever. All those things take time. And all that time per customer, you could almost tint an entire whole other car. So once you streamline your person answering the phone, they're going to make you want to hire another person. And that's when you get a helper, not before that. And the other cool part is your person answering the phones and doing all that other stuff. If you have a plotter, they can kind of be your helper too. Because if a job comes in and you're still working, or say you had a bad day with this one particular window that's kicking your ass and you have to redo it for the third time or whatever, and you're starting to fall behind. If you have a plotter, that's when that person can actually come back and cut your next set of patterns while you're trying to figure out this one window that's been kicking your butt. It takes some of the stress off, because one thing that I learned is when I'm having a hard time with a car or a window or whatever, and it just ain't going right, the pressure of knowing that there's another car sitting in the parking lot waiting for me is stressful. But if the patterns are already getting cut, and do you know that once a set of patterns is cut, I'm about 35 to 40 minutes to shrink and lay all those patterns. Did you also know that if I have a helper, I'm 25 to 30 minutes because the helper is going to prep the car, may or may not cut the patterns. It just depends. If I'm caught up, then chances are I'm cutting the patterns while they're prepping the car, and we're about 30 minutes for the entire car, and it's done, and the customer's giving us 5-star reviews. Rico, glad you love the keg. As far as how much pressure you should put in it, you know, I see people be happy with as little as 40 psi, and I see people maxing them out at 110, 120 psi whenever the pressure release valve pops off. It really is going to boil down to what you are comfortable with. If you're just coming from a trigger sprayer, you know, you probably don't need so much. I remember I used to use the 3-gallon pump up sprayer, the one that sat on the floor and had a hose, kind of like the tint keg, but not a tint keg. And when I switched to a tint keg, I maxed that sucker out at 100 psi or whatever, and I blew the damn pattern right out of my hand when I went to spray it. I was like, "What the hell?" And like, I didn't expect it. Those pump sprayers, you get up to like 25 or 30 psi in them. They don't hold a lot.
With the high pressures, it's definitely how you flick your wrist. You know what I mean, you're obviously like at 120 psi. You're not going to sit there with the hose still or side to side super slow. It's just a quick like a quick flick.
Yep.
You know?
And also keep in mind also the more pressure, if you're not deliberate about the way you're spraying your edges, you can cause more contamination than you're actually flushing out, because it can, if you push the water to say this is the side of the window and you're spraying the sides, if you're spraying straight into the side, this water with that much pressure is going to go up and it's going to flush back down, and it's going to bring trash and contaminants in there. Where more pressure, you want to angle that spray so that the top edge of the spray line can't turn and go up. It's just going to spray and rinse down, and then you won't get so much trash. So it's something you have to figure out. There is no right answer for that, because like I said, if you're using a trigger sprayer, you're probably, each spritz is probably giving it about 10 psi, 15 psi. If you're using a pump sprayer, you're probably at about 25 to 40, depending on how much you pump it up. You use a keg, like I said, you can go all the way up over 100 if you want to. That is totally going to be up to you.
Yeah, I gotta get going. I got a
Me too. I got a tree guy coming to my house, hopefully to give me a price that's worth having 2 trees removed. Guys, it is 5 o'clock. You know what? This was a great show. I enjoyed it. And thanks for asking the good questions, Alex, because I needed that. Otherwise, I was going to get all spiritual and talk about God stuff with them, because I can do that too. Although I was trying not to. And the hell is going on out there? Oh, that's Diana. Your wife's already here. So you got a roof to get to. I got a tree guy to get to, and you guys got some window tinting to get to. So until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday.